Hey everyone, welcome to another session of Creative Art Time, a weekly live series where we create and talk about art together. So, if you're new here, I'm a self-taught artist from the Netherlands and I mostly create realistic portrait drawings with graphite and charcoal, but I also like watercolors and pastel. So today I want to experiment a little by trying out PanPastel and charcoal on some new paper. And I wanted to test out a few things and see how these materials work together. So I thought, why not share this process with you? This is what I normally do when I try out new materials or some new paper. So I've been testing out charcoal and pan pastels lately because, with graphite, you can't get any darker values. And I'm looking for alternatives for the black pencil that I normally use. So this live session will be around an hour. If you have any questions, you can ask them in the chat anytime. So let's get started. And first I want to show you before the paper, I want to show you what we created in one of the previous live sessions is this, and this is on Bristol Smooth. I used graphite and the black colored pencil for the darkest values. But if I compare this to charcoal, so this is a drawing where I created the hair using charcoal, you can see that the darker values, they just pop more. So that's something that I'm experimenting with, that I really like, getting those darker values that I just can't get with the black colored pencil. So this is the darkest I can get, and you can see if you look at this drawing on its own, it looks okay, but here you can really see that black of that charcoal. So if you want to go darker in your drawings, with graphite you can't do that, so you need something else, like in this case a black colored pencil, and in this drawing I used charcoal. And here's another example. I used graphite and the black colored pencil. So if I used charcoal on this drawing, then I could really like push those darker values and get those darker values. And I think that could have made this drawing pop even more. So the graphite works really well for the shading, but then I would actually want it to go a bit darker. And here I used the black colored pencil, but you can see that you can't really get those black values if you compare it to the charcoal, the black here. And I've also been wanting to add some backgrounds. So with graphite, yeah, if you need to fill in the whole area and the background, you can't really do that with graphite. You can, but then you would need some kind of powder. So I have been testing charcoal powder and PanPastel. So I used PanPastel for the background here, and I used charcoal on the eyes. So you can see that by using charcoal, it really makes the eye pop here in the drawing. If you compare the values here, this isn't really that black. See that? And you can also see if I hold it against the light, you can see that graphite shine. And with this is oil based. I need to press really hard to get those darker values. And then you will also limit yourself if you want to erase the layers. So that's also one thing I like about the charcoal, that you can just use really light pressure and you can erase really easily. And with the black pencil, I need to press really hard to get those blacks. So for this, I used PanPastel on Bristol Smooth paper, and that's my favorite paper to use. But I also wanted to try out different paper, and this is actually watercolor paper, but then hot pressed. So because it's hot pressed, it's really smooth. Hello everyone. Elizabeth says, thank you so much for your tutorials. I learned so much from every single video. You are amazing. I'm so glad to hear your kind comment. And hello Erica, welcome. So the paper, this is hot pressed watercolor paper. And I have this paper because I wanted to try it out with watercolors. But I have seen some using charcoal and graphite on watercolor paper. And because this is hot pressed, it's smooth. And I like using smooth paper. So I tested this out with PanPastel and charcoal. But this paper by Arches is a bit off-white. You can see if I compare here, you're not really sure if you can see that on camera, but this paper is white and this is off-white. So yeah, that's one thing. I prefer my paper to be white if I'm using white paper instead of off-white. Otherwise, I would use toned paper, you know. So I thought I could just use this one. This is Fabriano Artistico Extra White. And then I also have, this is Bristol Vellum Surface. And this is, yeah, this paper has just a bit of a texture, which I didn't really like with using with graphite, but maybe with the PanPastel and the brush, that could give a difference. So I wanted to test this one, the Artistico Hot Pressed, and this is also a different paper. This is also Fabriano. I bought a sheet of this one. I don't have a pad, but this is Fabriano, and this is 50% cotton, also 300 GSM, so it's the same thickness as all of the other paper, but because it's 50% cotton, it's a bit cheaper, but it can also work great with charcoal. And with watercolor, you want to have 100% cotton, but with charcoal and any dry materials, that wouldn't really matter. So this is one I also wanted to try out, as well as the vellum and the hot pressed watercolor paper. So I've been testing this out. I started a drawing here, didn't finish it. Here I tested the graphite, and you can see that it looks grainy. But look how smooth the PanPastel looks, and I'm going to show you how I added that. So I wanted to test, do some more tests and do that with you. And if you're not sure what PanPastel is, this is pastel in a tin. And I already had the black and the white. It was included in a set. And I really liked that I could just use a sponge and get really smooth shading right away. So I thought, okay, I need some gray values. So I have the neutral gray. I have the shade. This is the neutral gray, regular color. And then you also have the neutral gray tint. So you can see all of these values from the lighter one, the medium gray, darker gray, and then there's also neutral gray extra dark. So now I have the white, 4 extra or gray values, and then the black. So look at how many values you can create with the PanPastel. And I want to use a brush and a sponge and to see how that works out, and also test out the different paper. So let's start with, oh, and this is already getting a bit dirty, but that's where you can just use the kneaded eraser, one of my favorite tools, and just clean it up. So the PanPastel and the charcoal that I'm going to use are the charcoal pencils. These are all really easy to erase. So this is like a makeup sponge, you can easily, let's try the gray. And maybe the sponge is a bit dirty because I used it before, but look how easy you can just add a layer like that. And I also have some makeup brushes. And this is also something that you can really easily use to add a layer to your paper. So this is what I did in this drawing to create the background. I used brushes and sponges. And then because we have some darker values, you can create some gradation and just blend it like this. But what I also have are, so I looked for some smaller brushes, flat brushes, because I wanted to be able to create like some edges, you know, or some smaller areas. So I looked up any synthetic brushes I already had, and I have a few sets for watercolors. So I looked up for some flat brushes or filbert brushes. That's the name. So this is a flat brush. And this one is a filbert brush, size 0. So with these flat brushes, you can create really thin edges. With the PanPastel. So let's, so you can actually just use this to paint. What exactly is pastel? How does it differ from charcoal? Yeah, good question. I think the pastel, this is in a pan, so it's really easy to, the powder is loose. I also have charcoal powder, and I tried that before. And because the powder is really loose, and then you take some out of the container, it gets really messy. And I'm not sure what's the difference, like how this is this powder, you know, it's like sticked more together. I'm not sure how they achieve that, but that's just the difference with PanPastel and the charcoal powder. This is less messy. So you can see here, you can see that powder on top. And this is what I prefer, or I like, because it doesn't get as messy as with charcoal powder. And also with charcoal powder, you can just get one value. And if you want lighter values or darker values, you need to use something else. So the reason I started using PanPastel is, again, because it's less messy for me for when I'm going to create larger areas like the background. And then for the charcoal, I can just use the charcoal pencils. So let me show you this is the 2B medium, how dark you can get with the charcoal pencil really easily. And then you can blend this with the blending stump and create a gradation like this. And you can also use a brush to blend and then create a really nice soft blending. Okay, so yeah, because that's the main difference for me, because the charcoal powder can get really messy and I can't really create different values with it. I would have to use the graphite, which I did before. I thought I have all of these values with PanPastel, so I could use that for, let me show you this example again, that for like the shading of the skin. And then for the details, I could use the charcoal pencils because they are less messy than the powder. So yeah, trying out different paper. I want to test out this paper, see how this goes. And with a detailed brush, you can follow along edges like I already mentioned. But you can also use a bigger brush. Let's use this value. And then go over a bigger area. So I will just need to test out different, yeah, actually when I test out different paper, the next step is I also just create a drawing on the paper to really see how the materials work and see if how I like how it layers and if I like how it blends. Lake says, I have the basic set of PanPastels, 3 primary colors, black and white. Wonder if I can mix the black and white to get gray. Yeah, well, let's test that for you. But you will limit yourself to only 1 gray, I think. I'm not sure. Let's just do that. I'm going to, this is the black. And this is the white. But I would say, yeah, mixing your own colors every time, that would be time consuming and more difficult than just getting some gray values. Let's see. Yeah, you could test, I don't want to get these pans dirty, but you could mix inside on the pans, but I don't think I can let's add the black and some white. So I think you can get it a bit lighter, but it's not really something. Let's blend the white over this. So you can see that the value is getting lighter. See that? The more I add, we're getting like a middle gray here, but then that's it. Let's see if I can get it lighter by adding more white. But I can see that how do you say that? It's getting really thick, this. And let's say if you want like just a really light layer of a lighter value, it wouldn't be easy to mix this every time. So yeah, you could mix the black and the white to get gray, but you will only get this like 50% mix of gray. If you want a lighter value, I'm adding more white, but this is it. See that? And then this is the black next to it. So this is how I started. And I'm not sure if I, when I add it on this paper, that's a bit the same. It looks like I get more dust on this paper. I'm not sure. It's just a difference. Okay, I want to continue on this paper, the watercolor hot pressed paper. First I want to put down the different values. This is the tint. Yeah, the white wouldn't show. And this is neutral gray shade. So I have the tint, the neutral gray, gray regular, and then the neutral gray shade, and then the extra dark. Let's use, I want to test the different values here. So I'm starting with the lighter one. So this is how you could build up values on your drawing. This is at least what I would do. And then here we have the neutral gray. So if you're going to work on a larger area drawing, or if you're going to add backgrounds, yeah, PanPastel has always been great to use. And I started using colors. I used PanPastel and colored pencils, because with colored pencils, you're also not going to color in, at least not me, color in a whole background. You can if you want to spend many hours on a drawing. So these are the 4 values you can get. Let's blend this a bit. Shannon asks, with a set of pastel with more than 1 tone, should there be designated brushes for container? Yes, there are PanPastel tools and sponges by PanPastel that you can use, especially for the PanPastel. Let me show you real quick. These are the PanPastel sponges. That come, or that you can get with PanPastel. So this is what I wanted to show you. But these are sponges, and it works a bit different. I feel that with a brush, you can get a softer effect. So that's why this would be comparable to the makeup brush that I like to use. Let's add a layer here. So this is really great for, like, if you need to fill in a whole background. But you can also have the PanPastel sponges. So this sponge also, look how smooth shading you get, and then you can blend it in. So yeah, sponges, but with brushes you can get a softer effect and blend further. Let's put down this is the HB hard charcoal pencil. You can get a bit thinner lines with the hardest charcoal pencil. And then we have the 2B medium. And the 4B soft. And the 6B extra soft. So look at how dark values you can get. You can really make a drawing pop this way. What I wanted to do is create a small drawing here. Let me show you the reference photo that I want to follow, so you can see how I'm going to test this. I'm going to add some tape just to mask this out. Let's see, like around this. So I cropped a part out of a photo because I wanted to practice some shading and I wanted to practice some texture. So in this case, hair texture. And I want to see how that goes with PanPastel and the charcoal. Oh, my hands are dirty. Let's clean that off on need an eraser. This is masking tape. The brand is MT, and all of the materials that I use are, I usually get them on Amazon. Let's try to create a square. Is this straight? Yeah. Let's see, is this a square? Yeah, this is fine. Okay, so I want to start, let's use the HB, and let's just draw like an edge for the face. So this is what I normally do when I test out different paper. I just take a part of like a portrait, and I usually look for something smooth, like skin, part of the skin, or I create like a nose and mouth. I didn't finish this one, I might. Let's just see how everything blends together. So this is the hair. I'm just using the reference as a guide, showing you what I'm looking at, but yeah, it doesn't have to be exactly the same. So some hair like this and this. Okay, so this will be the side of the head. Erica asks, what is the difference between General's charcoal and pit charcoal? General's charcoal and pit charcoal. Is the pit charcoal also in a pencil? Do they also have pencils of that? Because I have a pit stick, charcoal stick by Faber-Castell. Let's see, but I don't have any pencils, charcoal pencils. So which brand is that? The pit charcoal, if you know. And I have used different charcoal brands, charcoal pencils, and these, yeah, these are just the smoothest. And one important thing is that I can sharpen these. I have tried out different brands, and when I sharpened them, they kept on breaking. And yeah, I can use my electric sharpener to sharpen these pencils. So that's the Faber-Castell. Okay, so are there Faber-Castell Pit charcoal pencils? If so, I haven't tried them. So they might, like I said, there are different charcoal pencils that can all work the same. I just had trouble with other brands sharpening them. So I would say other brands could be fine as well. I just like that it's in a pencil so that you don't get messy when drawing with it, you know? Okay, so let's start with the lighter value. I'm just going to start with the lighter one and with the bigger brush, and then just start shading. See how that goes. And I also see a highlight like here for the cheek. So I could have like blended around that, but I can also use the kneaded eraser. Because again, the PanPastel and the charcoal erases really easily. Let's use the eraser. So I'm looking at the reference now, and I see, oh, there should be a highlight there. So again, I could have go around it, but you can also just use the kneaded eraser to lighten. And let's see, clean off the brush. Yeah, actually on another piece of paper, and then blend. Let's add some darker value here. Let's just move on to the next value. So to create a gradual, and then here it's all darker, so it's okay if you blend over this, but normally if this would be an edge and I need this to be clean, I would just use the kneaded eraser to clean up the edge later. Let's go one value darker. And then if I want to be a bit more precise, I also have a smaller brush. So these are great for the larger areas. And then these flat or filbert brushes you can use for the smaller areas. Let's use the darker one for the edge here. And then I'm continuing to, like, I pick up and I just keep blending towards, yeah, to create a smooth gradient. And so far this paper, yeah, feels good. I'm also curious to see, so I added charcoal here. I blended over it with the PanPastel, how that will erase. Let's add a bit more darker value here for that jawline. And then for the hair, I'm going to use charcoal, the charcoal pencils. So let's add, yeah, let's blend this a bit. Clean off the brush, and then or actually maybe let's try cleaning off the brush using white for this highlight here. See if I can really get that highlighted area. With the white. A bit more. Okay, let's blend this a bit. Yeah, so I need something to clean the brushes off. When we're blending with the lighter, then this gets lighter. When I'm blending with the darker, then that gets darker. So that's just like trial and error, something that I would need to practice with. Okay, so let's move on to the hair. Let's see how, can always go back to that area. With the 2B charcoal pencil, I'm going to like define the movement of the hair, and then I'm going to use the blending stump to blend. I think that would work best. You see how really dark I get, and I'm using really light pressure. With the black pencil, I always had to build up the layers. I use more and more pressure in the last layers, but then when I wanted to erase, I would need to be really mindful about not to press too hard in those areas, because it couldn't be erased. With charcoal, you can erase. And with hair, I use the eraser and I'm talking about this one, the stick eraser, as a drawing tool when I'm drawing hair for the highlights. That's really something that helps me to create realistic hair. So let's I'm just looking at the direction of the hair and adding the first layer. This can be like messy. And you can also layer charcoal. So you see that I'm leaving a few areas lighter. That's where I do see some highlights. But later we're also just going to add or create the highlights with the eraser. Okay, let's blend this with the stump. Soften this all. And whenever you try out new paper, I wouldn't recommend to draw something like a complete drawing, but first see if you like how it blends and how it feels when you're layering. So just test out a smaller area. Okay, so I blend everything together. And so far I like how this blends on the paper. Not noticing anything different. And the reason why I liked using Bristol Smooth is that the graphite was so smooth. But look at how smooth the PanPastel is on this paper. Let's add another layer. And I'm going to use the 4B now because it's a bit softer. So I'm going to focus on the darker areas that I see now. And then after this we can use the eraser to blend. At the top here it's quite dark, and then here we have a few lighter strands of hair. So this is just 2 layers of charcoal. Look how dark it gets really easily. Let's blend this. And I'm curious to see how easily this will erase. So this is the edge of the face. It looks really harsh now, so I'm going to blend it in a bit more to the left so that it looks like an edge instead of a line. See that? Make it look a bit softer instead of a harsh line because it is an edge. Okay, let's blend. Can you use fixative on PanPastel? Yes, you can use fixative on anything. Pastels, charcoal, graphite. The fixative spray I have, it says you can use it on any dry medium. So yeah, pastels, charcoal, graphite, it will all work the same. And I think that pastel is kind of comparable to charcoal, actually. I just feel that charcoal, yeah, when I tried charcoal powder, it was so messy. So that's why I prefer the pans, but you could also use charcoal powder. Shannon, it helps to get a set of makeup applicators so that you don't get colors muddy in the tins. That they're fairly cheap on Amazon. Yeah, those smaller. I have one here. I think you mean this one. These kind of smaller applicators. These are sponges as well. So let's These also work really nice and really smooth. But again, with the brush you can apply less. Like if I, this was with the sponge, and now with the brush, same value. You see, I can get like a lighter and a bit softer blending. So this looks like 4 layers, you know, with the sponge, and then with the brush you can like really build up softer layers that way. So that's what I think is the difference with the brushes and the sponge. Okay, so let's use the eraser now. I like to use the kneaded eraser, clean off the stick eraser that way, because otherwise you will just be smudging if you don't clean it in between. So let's create these highlights and that movement. Or you can clean it off on the tape here. Yeah. And also some of those like flyaway hairs, different directions. And because I'm actually going to continue this, because we only have light layers created with the charcoal, you can erase really easily. But then these eraser strokes look really harsh, so that's when I blend them again. Maybe we can use a brush to blend, because the brush will be a bit softer. So I'm going to try out that. Oh. Making this area a bit lighter here. Here it's a bit lighter. So with hair, I usually go a bit back and forth. I create highlights, then, so this looks too harsh to me. So then I blend. Let's use a brush. See how that goes. If I can blend it, if I get a softer look. Okay, now let's use the HB hard pencil because I want to like define the hair strokes a bit more. Let's see if that actually shows, because this one is less dark. So I can create thinner lines with this one. I like the soft effect of using PanPastel for the face. Yeah, I really also like that. Like in this example, when I was creating the nose, I just used brushes and PanPastel, and then here I used smaller brushes, and because this is a larger area, I like how easily you can just fill in larger areas. So far so good. I'm liking how the PanPastel layers. But again, I would need to test it out further with other drawings. And yeah, I'm not sure. This is the 50% cotton paper, and this is the Bristol vellum. The smooth paper is what I prefer with graphite, but maybe I can experiment some more on the 300 series vellum paper. And it would be just a matter of practice and drawing to compare and see and test, yeah, how that goes. So this area is quite light. Let's use the kneaded eraser. Just dab when I need to lighten a larger area. Just dab it on. So you see how easily you can get really dark with the charcoal, but that's also the thing, that you don't get too dark right away. So maybe I need to see if I can find a way that I can, yeah, layer some more. Or yeah, I started with the 2B and then I went with the 4B. Maybe I should have weight to darken. Okay, so this is lighter. Let's use the blending stump. And the eraser again. Oh, this is a newer kneaded eraser, and it's the newer the eraser, it's really sticky. I have an older one, and that one got a bit harder, but I actually liked that it was a bit harder and less sticky. So I would, I think this is interesting enough. Well, I think this is interesting to practice some more with. And let's blend with the blending stump. Let's see if I can also use the white with a brush. Just trying things here, experimenting for this lighter, like that lighter glow highlight on the hair. Here. So it's almost like painting with the PanPastel and the brushes. I'm not sure what this is exactly doing, but yeah, I'm just trying to see if I like this effect. Let's blend a bit over this with the gray. No, with the darker gray. No, with the darker shade. Yeah. So with all of these different values of gray, I think we can make that work. Let's add, because now with the darker value of the hair, let's make this area a bit darker. So that you really have that, you know, it needs to look like an edge. So you need the values next to it to be correct. And then let's blend that. See how easily the brushes blend. And I do notice that now that I'm blending on top of the charcoal gets a bit lighter. And that's also interesting if you need to get a lighter effect. Okay, so we have that edge here. Let's use the charcoal again to layer over this. See how that goes. So I can layer over the charcoal and then over the PanPastel again. So that works. Let's go over this. I added PanPastel here. Yeah. So that PanPastel made it a bit softer, created a bit of a softer look. Let's add some more here. And then with the charcoal pencil, I can add texture again. So the PanPastel, the blending with the blending stump wasn't enough. So yeah, this is just me experimenting, trying. And then that's what you can also do if you like the certain technique, then you can try it again. Or if it didn't work out, then you know that you're not going to try that again. Yeah, so I like how this adds a softer. I couldn't get that with the blending stump, so this actually works. It's creating that softer effect because the hair is kind of out of focus also here. Let's actually use the darker here. It's darker. So when I started using pastel pencils instead of colored pencils, I really liked how how it looked, how it blended, and how it can almost look like a painting, you know, like an oil painting. I would never use oils, but I really like how a painting looks when someone creates something like that, like oil, like a painting created with oil. But I would never use that. So I don't know, pastels kind of like give me the same, almost create that same look. I don't know. For me, that's what I think. So I think that's what I also like about the PanPastel, creating that like that soft blended look. What I want to create more with pastel pencils, but now with yeah, black and white. There's something about a black and white drawing, isn't it? It's so, I think it's really interesting. And graphite alone, you couldn't get those drawings to pop. Okay, so yeah, this is, I really like using a small brush and kind of like just painting with these different values and then creating the texture with the charcoal pencil. Yeah, that really works for me, at least with this drawing. Creating a bit more texture. And this is the HB charcoal. First I only had the set of three, like the 2B, 4B, and 6B, and then this, you can get this individually. But I think this one is also worth it because you can get harder edges with this and just more detail, because charcoals actually it usually is really soft, not great with detail, but this one is really nice for detail. Lake says, and I love how you can use a kneaded eraser to remove mistakes. Unlike watercolors and acrylic, I got an electric eraser and that works too. Yes, yes. That's what I love about charcoal as well. Like if you darken somewhere, or yeah, just a mistake, you want to use the eraser, and then if you erase too much, you can just go back, and you can go back and forth. Watercolors is less forgiving. And also with pastel pencils, colored pastel pencils, you can use white over, like lighter colors over dark, and with colored pencils you can't really. So you also need to be more mindful, like start with the light layers and then gradually go darker. With pastel pencils you can go to dark, back to light again, and just keep on layering. So that's, yeah, really something that I started to love using, pastel pencils. And then, yeah, this is charcoal, but maybe, yeah, I'm just thinking now I could actually also use a black pastel pencil, or maybe even a gray pastel pencil. So then I have like the same values if I need to go lighter. Interesting. Yeah, just something I can also try out in the future. Because again, I started drawing with graphite. I love graphite. But then, okay, how are you going to make your drawing pop? Yeah, how? Not with only graphite. I'm adding a bit more here. And let's blend. And I didn't use the black PanPastel here, but I can also use the black for these darker blends. When I create something like this and I see the outcome, then it really, how do you say that? I get interested in trying more. But then I start using pastel pencils with color, and then I'm also interested in trying out more. So yeah, pastel is what interests me now, and I just want to create more with it. Okay, so yeah, I think let's blend this a bit more here. So this is pastel on top of charcoal. So far it works. But now I'm also thinking that I could just use black pastel pencil. And this is on hot pressed paper. I used pastel paper, but that texture really doesn't work for me. So I like how the hot pressed, so this is watercolor paper, but then hot pressed, you know, cold pressed is the textured one. You want to use that with watercolors, but hot pressed is without the texture. And what did I want to say? Yeah, maybe I'll come up with it. Okay. Yeah, I could just continue to work on this and layer. So the more layers you add, the more details you can add, but I think this is fine for now. And I'm really interested to maybe use a black pastel. I already said that, so I'm repeating myself, but using a black pastel pencil maybe. Yeah, and then maybe practice on Bristol vellum paper. Let's blend this. So the blending works, the layering works. Yeah. Let's see the white. I can use white also instead of an eraser. If an eraser erases like really like harsh strokes, so yeah, you could use that, but then you will need to blend. So if you want to add like just a lighter touch in the white, I can see that it works really well on top of the darks. So that's one thing that I love about the pastel, that you can go light over dark. You see, look how dark that is. And then if you want to make that less dark or create that like glow or reflection, then you can use the white. With watercolors, I also used white watercolor also to create that blend and reflection. And this is actually the same effect. So you know, the more layers you're going to add, you can make it more and more realistic. So I like how this blends it to make it look a bit softer, make it look more like natural hair. Yeah, and then back and forth, you know, a bit more details. But I think this is, yeah, this is how I'm going to leave it. So I hope this was also interesting for you to see and follow the process of testing out, testing out the PanPastel and the charcoal, and the idea of also trying out black pastel. But yeah, I'm not saying you have to get and buy more materials. Try what you have at home. If you have charcoal pencils at home, if you have charcoal powder at home, try that and see what works for you. I already had the white and the black PanPastel, so most of you, if you have been working with PanPastel, you might have those. Try blending, try working with that. And then for the brushes you can just use, these are synthetic brushes, brushes that I also use for watercolors. You can also type in on Amazon like synthetic brushes, fiber filbert. No, how? Yeah, filbert and flat brushes. Those are great. Let's actually remove the tape. See how that looks, because that gives us a nice clean border. And that's actually the magical feeling when you create or when you finish a drawing, and then you get that nice clean border. And then here you see these dirty edges. Let's use the eraser, clean that up. So the kneaded eraser is really magical. This is perfect. See how clean, really nice. And I'm really curious to see how this will work. Continuing on a bigger area, or maybe I can finish this, see how this will go. Because creating texture on lips, you know, those creases and lines, that can also be interesting to do. Thank you, Emmy. I joined late and will revisit from the beginning. Interesting to learn about different media. Yeah, I'm glad I could give you some ideas. Lake says, I'll definitely try using PanPastels for backgrounds. Thank you for the demo. I'd be very helpful. You're welcome. And backgrounds, yeah, this is actually kind of why I purchased PanPastel, to create larger backgrounds. And when I was drawing with graphite only, I usually just drew the subject and I never added a background. But a background can really give a special final touch to your drawing, especially if it's like a darker background. It can create like an interesting, it can make the subject subject pop more instead of just a white background. So, okay, yeah, that's it for now. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. And I hope you enjoyed this live session. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you found this helpful. And Jurda says, I'm a beginner and for me it is just graphite. Looks beautiful. Yeah, it's great to start with graphite, definitely. I would practice, but once you understand the basics of drawing, you can use any medium as long as you understand the values, like how do you create a drawing from create the values from white to black and all of the values in between. How do you make something look round? Once you understand those basics, just the basics of art, you can use any medium to create something beautiful. So if you'd like to get any updates and reminders about these live sessions, you can join my email list. There's a link below the video. Or maybe you're interested in learning more from me, then you can check out my art courses. Let's see, something is happening with the background here. Yeah, I also have an art membership that will help you learn from the beginning in a structured way. There are step-by-step video lessons that will help you go from a beginner to advanced. So before you practice and trying out different medium, I would say start from the basics and then go from there. So if you'd like to learn more, if you're interested, you'll find all the details under the video. And yeah, so that's it for today. I hope to see you all next week. Have a nice day or evening. Bye bye.